The Jim Crow abuse tour continues apace. He's been serenading the police as of late, just heaping a whole bunch of undue praise on top of them and apparently not seeing the irony of any of it, or perhaps basking in the irony. Joe Biden has, as part of his annual pilgrimage to kiss the ring of the thugs in blue, he's gone to give yet another wind-blown speech, this time at the U.S. Capitol, to honor law enforcement who died in the line of duty. And he heaped on the lies big. Being a cop today is one hell of a lot harder than it's ever been. Actually, the fatalities for cops are at historic lows, lowest point in 50 years. I've already gone ahead and documented that for you. You can look it up for yourself. Google is your friend. But the fact that he would go and tell a lie like that is harder than it's ever been. Whatever difficulties the cops have, it's their own damn fault. It's the result of what they've done. Nobody's done it to them. But that's the thing. He's playing into the phony victim narrative that the cops are all being harassed and people aren't grateful to them. He just repeated the line for them across the line, and it was absolutely ridiculous. He claims that 2020 was the deadliest year on record for police. Of course, what he didn't give much mention to was that the real reason for the police fatalities in 2020 was COVID deaths. Yeah, all that sitting on your butt all day doing nothing but eating donuts and hot dogs, that pretty much tends to put you in the comorbidities category. Of course, Biden didn't mention that when he did finally get around to mentioning the little factoid about, well, it's COVID deaths that we're talking about. He didn't lecture the thugs in blue to get vaccinated. I noticed that when he finally did mention, oh, well, it's COVID deaths. COVID's taking a toll on the police, just taking a toll. He didn't say anything about it. And that's why you guys need to all get vaccinated. We've been reaching out to you, but you guys just haven't been answering. He doesn't tell the police that they're not going to get federal funds unless they get the shot. The most obvious thing that could be done to make cities put pressure on the police to get vaccinated is to yank their federal funding and attach federal funds to the vaccination specifically. But of course, that doesn't happen. It won't even be suggested. No talk of penalizing the police for not getting the shot. And you won't see racist Democrat mouthpieces like James Carville saying, well, if the police refuse to get vaccinated, then I think they ought to be refused admission to the hospital because this was completely and thoroughly preventable. No one is holding the police accountable for their refusal to get the shot, and no one's demanding that they do so. No one's making an issue of that at all. Nobody's saying anything. See, when they talk about the black community, they're not getting the shot, and what can be done to encourage them to do so with the police? Well, if they're not doing it, I guess there's nothing we can do. And then the bastard Biden has the nerve to say that we ought to be nicer to the cops because if we're not, why, it's going to be more difficult to get people to want to become police. Give me a break. As I've documented for you, being a member of law enforcement is one of the safest jobs in America. You get to absolutely gorge yourself at the public trough. Hell, as long as you're white, you can kill people and nothing's going to be done against you. That's the real problem that they got. That, oh, well, you can't just gun people down and anymore expect to skate. Oh, my heart weeps for the thugs in blue. Now, of course, there was what can only be called a facile just sham that they were going to try to pass some sort of police reform bill last year, but of course it failed in Congress, and the Democrats have not tried to revive it this year now that they've got control of the House and the Senate. They're not very keen on trying it now that they actually got control of Congress. Ain't that what they said last year? Well, we couldn't get it through because the Republicans. Well, now the Democrats control both houses of Congress, and it still ain't getting done. Gee, I'm starting to think that maybe the Republicans aren't the problem here. Oh, Biden said that he was going to do some things to invest in law enforcement. Yeah, the hundreds of millions of dollars that he promised to hand over to the thugs in blue, he's letting them know now we're going to go ahead and do that. But none of those monies are going to be used in order to surveil police, monitor police, or punish police. The only thing the police need to be hearing is, y'all are absolutely out of control and we're going to get you back under control by any means necessary. Instead, what does Biden do? He lets them know, oh, you're not responsible for anything. All these killings you guys are doing, I'm not even going to say that it's you doing it. He talked as if apparently all these murders at the hands of the police were being committed by unknown persons. In fact, he didn't even mention it. He said instead we need to invest in health care, counseling, drug prevention, housing, education, social services, so there is not the discord. You know, it's not a lack of counseling or health care that's the reason for the discord. It is the fact that the police are not being punished. There is a socially and legally permissive environment that allows them to murder at will, particularly black people, to kill black people anytime they want, and they're not punished. That's the reason why. But of course, Biden's not saying that. But what he did say was, to the families of the fallen who suffered enormous loss, understand your loss is also America's loss. Has he ever talked that way about any of the black people murdered by the police? But it's this last part that galls me the most. Let us prevent the preventable tragedies. I believe with all my heart there's nothing you're unable to do if we equip you. Really? The bastard actually said that. There's nothing you're unable to do if we equip you. Derek Chauvin used a neck pinch on the carotid artery, on the arteries of George Floyd that was meant to asphyxiate him over time, because he had done it before. You think that the problem for him was that he didn't have enough equipment? Was it a lack of equipment that made it where he deliberately knelt on a man's neck for 9 minutes until he was dead? That was a lack of equipment? And while his thug buddies just stood there smiling as this murder took place, that was a lack of equipment? Chauvin needed more equipment? Michael Slager murdered Walter Scott. Was that a lack of equipment? The animals who murdered Elijah McClain and then afterwards took photos of themselves reenacting the murder, was that the result of a lack of equipment? There's nothing you're unable to do if we equip you. At no point does he put responsibility on them. They're not responsible for anything that they do. Why? It's society. We just haven't given you sufficient equipment or training. It's a training issue. You black Biden supporters, you look dumb as hell. This is what you supported. No wonder you're laying low. Tell me, exactly how is Biden giving this big sloppy kiss to the thugs in blue? How is that any different than Trump's propaganda rallies where he would say, you know, you guys, you put your hand on top of your hand on top of the people's heads when you put them in the police car. You can take the hand away. You can take the hand away. And the cops love that one. How is what Biden's doing any different? He may not be saying go ahead and commit violence. He's just saying I back you all the way and I'm not going to mention it, which gives the message loud and clear. He's not saying anything about the police violence against black people. They get the message loud and clear. Okay, he ain't going to do nothing about us. So how is this any different than Trump? Come on, go ahead and give us another chorus of, well, Joe Biden, he's going to do something about them cops because he knows what'll happen if he don't. He's sitting here spitting in your faces. You were dumb enough to vote for him. That means you're going to sit on your hands, and he knows it. So there's no talk of punishment. There's no talk of nothing that even hints we see you guys committing these murders. Not even an acknowledgement of that. Oh, no, Biden's not saying that. Oh, and certainly nothing. While all these police deaths are happening, the deadliest year for police ever in America, as the result of what the media keeps saying is totally preventable, and yet the police, they're running around telling everybody we're not getting the shot. Police departments coast to coast saying, no, our unions, we're all speaking with one voice here. No vaccinations for us. Hell, even CNN couldn't cover up the fact that 5 times as many police have died from COVID as from gunfire since the pandemic began. 5 times as many. Well, hell, where's Heather MacDonald at? Why, she wrote an entire fiction book, The War on Cops, or as I like to call it, The War That Never Was. Now, if she was willing to tell a bunch of lies and manufacture numbers to pretend as if the police are somehow under siege, well, hell, she wouldn't even have to lie this time. She could just go ahead and use straight numbers instead of manufacturing and twisting and statisticulating. She could just go ahead and just report the straight numbers, but that's the point. Her job is to make excuses to try to pretzel and manufacture a talking point with numbers that have been convoluted and twisted and broken in 5 different ways where you can barely even say her talking points because it's so convoluted. That's what she does. But this is what should be leading the news every day. Come on, if we're going to be talking about the police as if they walk on water, we need to point out the fact that 5 times as many of them have died from COVID as from gunfire. The number one cause of police death in America is COVID-19. Barack Obama had no problem signing his blue alert executive order. You had governors across the country after Gavin Long and Micah Johnson who wanted to do their little bull crap morale boosters, and I've got another executive order, which is just like the laws that are on the books. This is just we can't really make the punishments for people who defend themselves from police violence any harsher than they are. So, we're going to put this law out here just to say we back the thugs. Back the badge. You don't have anyone saying, hey, if police are all dying from COVID-19, we need some laws passed, some executive orders passed so we can protect those who protect us. But how are you going to protect someone from themselves? Nobody is saying that there should be any legislative heft brought to bear to go ahead and make sure the police get the medical protection that they need. Even though 5 times many of them have died from COVID-19 as gunfire. I would say that this is a bona fide emergency, don't you think? And yet neither Biden nor anyone else, either in the white media or in the government, are calling out the thugs in blue for this, or pointing out, gee, these guys are supposed to be America's finest. They're supposed to be role models. These are supposed to be guys who are pillars of the community. They're supposed to be upholding the law, and yet here they are acting as a bunch of reckless scofflaws. Why, how irresponsible, how irresponsible. The kind of phony moralism that they usually do only with black athletes. Gee, where's all these white people in the white media? Where's their phony moralism when it comes to the police? Okay, so apparently the police, nobody expects them to be role models. Oh, with the police, apparently they're not supposed to be setting a good example for anyone, obviously. Oh no, nobody's pointing to the police and going, gee, you got cops nationwide, and when you count up the number of people who are in law enforcement in America, it numbers in about 1 million or so. I don't know how many black professional athletes there are in the NBA, but apparently they're getting their noses bent out of joint because 1 or 2 NBA players said, I'm not going to tell you my vaccination status. Meanwhile, you got the cops making their vaccination status totally clear. They're not vaccinated, and yet nobody's saying, Joe Biden is not coming down on them and saying, you guys, you need to get vaccinated. See, Joe Biden, he had no problem saying, I had to go tell black men it's not unmanly to use condoms. He had no problem talking like that in front of black folks. He's in front of the police, no lectures. He's in front of the police, no castigating them. Yeah, because he doesn't want to lose those police union votes. But he's not scared of losing black votes. You got a big race going down in Virginia. One of the Clinton acolytes, a lifelong Clinton clique member, Terry McAuliffe. Just in case you didn't know, yes, he was governor of Virginia in 2017 during the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. But under Virginia law, governors are not allowed to run for a consecutive re-election. You can run once and then you can come back and run again 4 years later, but you're not allowed to have 2 consecutive terms. But Terry McAuliffe, as I just said, he was governor of Virginia during the Charlottesville riot. And what did he do when the flood of white supremacists reenacted a Nazi rally in support of a Confederate monument? He got in front of the cameras and he gave a lukewarm mamby-pamby, you guys, you're not welcome here. You should go home. You should leave. And that's it. That's it. He didn't say this was an act of war against the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we are going to rain down on you like the wrath of God. We're rounding you guys up. We're going to be demanding, no matter what state you fled back to, we're going to be demanding extradition so you can be held accountable. None of that. Instead, you're not welcome here. Terry McAuliffe wants black votes. But what did he do for black people when he was governor before? Nothing. Now, this is usually the point where some Democratic shill is going to come bombing into the proceedings and try to say, but he signed an executive order giving ex-felons back their right to vote. Let's be bluntly honest here. When it comes to black people, we have to stop letting everyone make us the face of crime. Anytime you talk about black folks and our issues, well, crime, criminal justice, we got to stop giving people entree to do that. Most of us are not in prison. And we are not the face of crime in America. Secondly, this isn't being done out of the goodness of their hearts. The American Revolution's primary slogan was no taxation without representation. And yet you got all the states who in the 1960s decided that after segregation and such was ended, when there was a serious push against white supremacy in the society, they all decided to get on the bandwagon that we're going to be using felony convictions as a means of stripping away your right to vote. And because all 50 states did it, it amounts to a federal law because it applies to all 50 states as a national law without having to go through the Congress. And nobody in Congress said, you know what, maybe we need a law to go ahead and supersede this. They didn't because they were all on board with it. So I don't expect to be having Terry McAuliffe given any pat on the back. What, I'm supposed to give him a pat on the back for actually obeying the law, the spirit and word of the law? Is that what he wants? And on top of that, he's doing it because Democrats, if a quick and easy way for you to get some quickie votes is to do that, we're going to actually do what the law says. We're actually going to do what democracy is supposed to stand for. But only after we've tried every other way to circumvent doing so. People who have been incarcerated, by the way, tend to be very grateful and cooperative with whomever they perceive got them out. But we just need to be honest. Most people who have been incarcerated, they tend to, well, I'm not going to be too direct about this, but prison has a way of breaking black folks. Oh yes, prison has always been a means the white supremacy has used to break the will of particularly strong black people, or just black folks in general whose options are limited. Prison's pretty good for that. Not just in the United States, but worldwide. Oh, there's more than one way to break a buck. And while we're on the subject, I just think it needs to be mentioned that this doesn't apply to just black people. This felon voter restoration that McAuliffe and Northam and the Democrats have been trying, it doesn't just apply to black people. It also applies to white people. In fact, I would wager that the majority of the people who have benefited from this felon voter restoration policy were white. And yet you're not going to see McAuliffe or any of his boosters telling white Virginians, you got to vote for McAuliffe because felons are getting back their right to vote. With white Virginians, as with white voters everywhere else, the issue for white voters will be tangibles. You're not going to come up to them and expect to be getting any votes because, oh, so-and-so, Molly, the moonshine meth head, she got back her right to vote. And you guys should all vote for me because of that. They'll be like, well, it's very nice that you did that, nice humanitarian gesture, but we need something solid, something in our hands. Yeah, they go to white voters. It's never a matter of, let's talk about the crime blotter. They only try that with black people. So they're doing something that's meant to benefit them and telling you that you should vote for them because they did something that benefited themselves. So you can miss me with the claptrap about felon voter restoration. Okay? You're making something out of it that it's not. I want to know, what is Terry McAuliffe doing, or what has he done for black people in terms of power, wealth, and influence? Because you see, if black folks had the power, wealth, and influence that we're supposed to have, you wouldn't be having all these black folks getting railroaded. It wouldn't be allowed to happen because black people would have the power, the wealth, and the influence to stop it. So what is he doing to level the playing field on our behalf? Hell, what's he offering black voters this time around? Nothing. Well, at least he stayed consistent. That's what I expect from a lifelong Clinton devotee. And what exactly does McAuliffe's black voter outreach even look like? Souls to the polls. Well, at least it's better than saying get your booty to the polls. A few hackneyed endorsements from Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris. That's what he's offering up this time around. Just today, Stacey Abrams waddled her way into 3 black churches. I think they meant churches fried chicken shacks. I don't know if she necessarily went to people's places of worship, but Stacey Abrams went to 3 black churches on behalf of McAuliffe and talking all about the 2022 midterms. And Kamala Harris, she did some sort of mass Zoom call, I guess, where she addressed more than 300 black churches across Virginia in a video message. See, this is what you got your black clergy doing these days. If they're not trying to sell you on voting for Mike Bloomberg, then they're going ahead and telling you Terry McAuliffe, he's our man. If he can't ignore you Negroes, then nobody can. That's what's going on. No pressure being put on him for what he's going to do for black people. Instead, it's a matter of they keep it nice and vague. This is what your black clergy is doing. This is what your black men of God are up to. Long as they get invited to the right parties, then they're fine. They'll gladly allow their churches to be used as a rally for the leftist white supremacists. And in the case of Bloomberg, he might as well go ahead and stop faking. He's a right-wing white supremacist through and through. The strategy, such as it is clear. They're aiming to sway black female voters and old church-going Negroes, but then again, the black church is predominantly comprised of black women these days, so it's basically one and the same. They're trying to see if there's any black women who they can get some mileage out of if they put Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris in front of them. Trying to see if there's some old black folks who haven't died yet, some of these septuagenarians in the black church. And Barack Obama's supposed to come down and visit. So at least we know that their outreach to the black LGBT community is going to be accounted for. And of course, no political hoodwinking would be complete without Jim Crow Joe making it into the proceedings. Now that he's absolved the thugs in blue of all responsibility and let them know in no uncertain terms that as far as he's concerned, he's not even mentioning police misconduct. He ain't thinking about it. And don't worry about the vaccine. Nobody's going to tell you that you have to take it. And he made it clear that he doesn't hold them accountable for any of their actions. Now he's going to go down to Virginia to tell black people we owe it to him to vote for whomever he tells us to vote for. And don't expect any of your black clergy to mention anything about the lead water crisis in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Their water is poisoned, just like Flint, Michigan. Benton Harbor needs federal money immediately to fix their infrastructure. They need an infusion of federal dollars. That would help them enormously. It's a matter of life and death. But not only has Biden not mentioned Benton Harbor, he made it a point to go to Michigan a little over a week ago, as I told you, so he could ask the white Republicans in Howell, Michigan to vote for him. That's what he made time to do. There was no trying to get black voters to support his Build Back Better plan. Not in Michigan, it wasn't. And by the way, when he went to those white voters in Howell, the ones who were holding up signs saying F Biden, he didn't go to those angry white GOP voters empty-handed. The voters in Howell, Michigan, in that county, they are overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly Republican, diehard Republicans. And this is who Biden decided to go to. And when he went to these white Republicans who didn't vote for him and telling him F Biden, he didn't go to those people empty-handed. He told them he wanted them to support his Build Back Better plan. Told them it's going to create jobs. It's going to fix your roads and bridges. In other words, when Biden went to white voters, he offered them tangibles. And for that bastard to totally pass over Benton Harbor and to not even mention Benton Harbor and the tragedy going on there, that was him sending a message. Biden is making it very clear that his administration is going to be a continuous spitting in the face of black people. He's embracing the thugs in blue. No lectures for them. No calling them out for their murderous behavior. No making it clear to them, we need some rules that are going to make it where you guys toe the line and do what you're told. None of that. And where black people are concerned, you get the Benton Harbor treatment. So what exactly are the Democrats going to be saying to black people now that basically the election season has officially begun? The 2022 election season has officially begun. So what are Democrats going to do to try to woo black people to the polls this time? Well, I think this weekend, MSNBC has told us exactly what the Democrats' strategy for black voter outreach is going to be.
Terry McAuliffe has been focusing on Donald Trump. So has Phil Murphy in New Jersey. Gavin Newsom did in California. If we see a success in that, I think you may see more Democrats conclude this is one way to get their voters out to the polls. And I think, that fear is a big motivator. Fear is a big motivator for Trump supporters. I think fear is a big motivator for Democrats. It was a big motivator in 2020 and in 2018. And I do think that at this point, Democrats, that may be the strongest thing they have to mobilize their supporters. It's not just fear of Trump, but fear of Trumpism and fear of what Republican Party dominated by Trump may mean for them.
There you have it. A direct connection from Terry McAuliffe's campaign to this about people being afraid, and specifically black people. He wasn't just mentioning the Virginia race off the top of his head. This is specifically aimed at black people. You need to be scared, be afraid, be very afraid. Okay, maybe Trump's not running, but a bunch of wannabe Trumps are running and you should be scared. Fear. That's how we're going to get you to the polls. Fear. They say the Dems should focus on scaring their voters to the polls with fear of Trumpism. But this is just the same old Democrat strategy. Be afraid. This is their long-term strategy. Instead of them having a very general thing about, well, be scared of Republicans in general, instead they'll be saying the entire Republican Party wants to be like Trump, which is true, but it doesn't matter. Trump is not new. His racism's not new. And the Democrats' refusal to fight it is not new. But what they're telling you is, be scared of the Republicans knocking you niggers dead. That's our job as Democrats. That's what they're really selling. Be scared. Same thing they've been saying for the longest time. If we're not sitting here killing you niggers, why the Republicans, they would do it, only they would do it worse. We're the lesser of two evils. But still evil. That's the problem. We don't want the lesser of anything. The goal is not to have someone who basically, instead of telling the cops, go ahead and take your hand away, instead somebody who refuses to even acknowledge that the police are murdering black people and that he's going to take action against them. He won't even bring up their damn murderous record in front of them. He dare not do so. And no lectures about, you guys should be doing better. We've been telling you for years. No lectures for the police. That's no different than Trump. You see the consistency there. So what the hell are black people voting for? The candidate of fear, that's what it is. It's the same vote for us or the Republicans will be worse litany that we've always heard. The same talking point, just more of it. What they think is that Trump is going to be their boogeyman. Whenever they want to get black folks to quake in our boots and do as we're told, no questions asked, just go ahead and bring up Trump's name. Say that candidate so-and-so is a good friend of Trump, he loves Trump, he talks like Trump, and we'll stop asking or demanding anything for ourselves. We'll go ahead and get off of all of that tangibles talk, and instead it'll just be about, yes, man, he too dangerous, man. We just got to go with the lesser of two evils. He too dangerous, because later in that piece that I just played for you, the audio from, that's basically what they did. They were talking about an article in The Nation written by MSNBC's token Negro shill, Eli Mistal. I told you all about that guy and how he was cursing to beat the band when Cosby was freed after his illegal conviction. This guy never got that mad about Trump. He never was a cursing, profane mess about Trump. And because we called him out, all of a sudden, I guess this is his way of, his little half-baked way of trying to get some of his cred back. But basically, he wrote a little article saying that Democrats are ready to abandon black voters again, and that some data scientist is telling Democrats to dump their racial justice message if they want to maintain any power. Maintain any power? What power do they have? All the Democrats do is tell black folks they can't do anything. And the article's titled, Democrats are ready to abandon black voters again. You can't abandon somebody multiple times. If you abandon them, I want to know, at what point did Democrats pick black folks back up again? At what point did Democrats come to black folks and say, oh, I'm very sorry we're so sorry that we dumped you guys. So let's go ahead and make it up to you. At what point did Democrats make amends to black people? No, they dumped black folks a long time ago. Just had some Negroes who are sitting here sniffing behind like there's something good to eat. All of this cheerleading that these Biden bootlicks have been telling you to do, and even they can't ignore what we've been saying. So once again, you got the black media telling you this stuff years before the white media's Negro bootlicking shills finally feel that they can no longer avoid having to say it. We were telling you, when Biden's running around kissing the cops' behinds and he's going to Howell, Michigan and ignoring Benton Harbor, Michigan, that is him making it loud and clear. I don't even want to be seen with these Negroes. I can't be seen in public with them. We're making it very clear who he's the president for, and it ain't black people. So the Democrats want to maintain power. Power for whom and for what? It's the same old political treadmill game that they like to play. Keep us running on a treadmill to nowhere. Ooh, we can't do nothing for you because we don't have control of the Congress. That's what they said last year. You had clowns like Cedric Richmond and old nigga Jim Clyburn saying, well, we can't do nothing for you if we ain't got control of the Congress. We got to get control of the House of Representatives and the Senate. See, we need the Senate. If we had that, we could get some things done. We getting stonewalled by the Republicans because we ain't got a majority. We get a majority, we can get some things done. Okay, black people gave Democrats the majority in the House and the Senate. They control the legislative branch. And what have they done? Now that we gave them what they said they wanted, what have they done? They're saying, well, we need more seats. And when you give them more seats, what are they going to say? We need more and more and more. Can't do anything until we get more seats. We need more seats. Because that's the entire point. The political battles are not meant to be won, they're simply meant to be fought so that you keep on the treadmill to nowhere. And they're just waiting to see if anybody wises up to the scam. Because what the Michael Cohen guy was saying about fear is going to be used to drive voters to the polls, that ain't nothing new. And truth be told, a lot of black folks, they like being scared. They enjoy being scared. Same way white folk like to go to these movies and see horror movies. They can be scared and pretend like they're scared of black folks. Black folks like to pretend that they're scared that the Republicans' beating and abuse is somehow going to be worse than the Democrats. They like to be scared. Especially if they can do it in front of some white leftists so they can say, see how scared we are, massa? Ooh, it's just so much fun. I mean, what a thrill. We is scared. People who are scared tend not to think. People who like being scared tend not to think. Well, you take a look at what it is that bastard Biden just did. Giving a little pep rally for the thugs in blue. Yeah, he's giving them the green light to go in on us. You better believe those police unions told him, well, Biden, you're supposed to be a good old boy from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And, you know, we need you to make it very clear that you ain't worrying about all these killings of black folks that we're doing. If you want to get our support, you got to make it clear, very clear to the Negras, they better not expect any support from you. You ain't calling us out. You got to make that real clear. When it comes to police violence against black people, you better make it crystal clear you don't have their backs. And that's what he did. No talk about police reform. No telling them you guys are 5 times as many of you are dying from COVID as from gunshots, so I'm going to do this for your own good. You need to be protected from yourselves. None of that. He didn't have any police chiefs taken to the lectern and lecturing the cops about, well, you know, in my police department, we mandate COVID vaccines and why most of our officers, we stopped all of these out of control, out of balance deaths due to COVID. They're not doing that at all. Hands off. And then saying vote for Terry McAuliffe so he can do nothing for you. Vote for him because it's fear. Meanwhile, these bastards, they're not afraid at all. Well, if they think you're going to continue to go for the scam, they won't be scared. They're going to be quite happy. Stacey Abrams is going to continue to have the delusion that she has some chance of actually being president one day or being vice president. That's what she thinks she's running for. She thinks she's running to be a VP. I guess she's hoping that Kamala gets kicked to the curb sooner rather than later, so she figures she'll slide, or in her case, waddle right in there. And you got all these pork chop preachers hoping for some faith-based initiative money or a pat on the head. Oh, hell for them, just as long as they get invited to some White House cookout. As soon as they get through with the annual NAACP fall fish fry or Jim Clyburn's fish fry, selling black people up the river is good business. It's good business, and it's also good politics because black people have allowed it to become good business and good politics. We have refused to upset the apple cart. Because acceptance from these white supremacists is more important to us than our own survival. We'll know more. We have to make sure that there are penalties for this kind of thing. Biden knew damn well what was expected of him. Not just in Benton Harbor, but also when it comes to the police, and he's not doing any of it. Not that we expected him to. What's going on here is not an IQ test. A lot of black voters already failed that one last year. What's going on now is the administration of a mass memory test. Are black voters able to remember all of Biden's broken promises? The lies that he told that he clearly had no intention of keeping? The police commission lie. Oh, Ice Cube, we're going to have Ice Cube at the White House. You've got my back, I'm going to have yours. The Lift Every Voice plan. Oh, all of these little proposals that he ain't done a damn one of. What happened to that police commission bill? Well, we were supposed to have a oversight commission for the police at the presidential level, but you know what? Let's give it to Congress. Yeah, the same Congress that didn't pass any sort of police reform last year and hasn't passed it this year either. What about Lift Every Voice? He's real quiet about that. He's keeping his voice low on that one. And everything else. Are black voters able to remember that? Or are black voters going to have the memory span of a dodo bird, roughly 5 minutes? Make no mistake, the reason that they're taking all of this attention to the Virginia race is because there's a whole bunch of old Negroes there. They're not doing this for nothing. They're doing this one because they feel confident that Terry McAuliffe can win. They can go ahead and get this as a notch on their belt and say, see, the Negroes are getting on board. We got all these old Negroes here. We're going to manufacture a narrative that black folks have forgotten about all of that racial justice stuff and all that stuff you hear from them angry people online. Nobody's listening to that. That's the narrative that they're trying to push. That's the narrative that they're trying to promote, a false, fraudulent one. And they feel that if this self-fulfilling prophecy, where they think the odds are overwhelmingly in their favor to get what they want, if that comes to pass, then hopefully people won't be listening to what we have to say. And they can reinforce the con and keep it going. That's what they're hoping will happen here. Well, we understand this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're in this one for the long haul. We were doing this before Jim Crow Joe became president. We'll be doing this after that scumbag's gone. This is not about one candidate or one election for us. This is about the power, wealth, and influence that we must have, and the hard-nosed approach that we take to that power, wealth, and influence. This is about showing everyone that a new day has dawned. You may be able to have a few token meaningless victories, but the overall trend is going to be toward black empowerment. And no amount of kissing the police's behinds or calling in your paid bootlicks is going to change that trajectory.